Thanks, Riv. We want to welcome TSM's Bjergsen to the desk after your first win here in Super Week against Dignitas, a team that you actually hadn't beaten yet this split. So talk to me about how it feels to beat a team in the last week before you go into playoffs that you hadn't previously beaten.
Yeah, at least we managed to be one of the teams that we hadn't beaten before, and it feels pretty good. I think we had a pretty decent record against other teams than Dig and LMQ, and going in, we really needed this win off of Dignitas, so we would feel confident if we met them in the playoffs, and we wouldn't feel like they're our kryptonite or they're unbeatable or they just have some counter to us. But now we feel pretty confident even if we would happen to meet them in playoffs.
All right, you guys are locked in at least third place now. You can't do any worse than that in the playoffs. Who are you most afraid of playing in the playoffs?
I'd say just LMQ has a really good grasp on us. We do just kind of not play as well against them, but that's also a part of them playing well against us. And probably LMQ and C9 are the two strongest teams that we would prefer to play later, maybe in the finals.
Absolutely. All right, let's jump into the game because I want to talk about the Aurelia pick into the Maokai. So talk to me a little bit about that because we've seen Maokai picked and banned in almost pretty much every game at this point, and people have been struggling to find an answer for it. So is Aurelia the solution?
There isn't really much of a solution. Top lane, especially with the sustained champions like Maokai and Gragas, they kind of can always just get out even and still be strong in team fights. But I think Maokai versus Aurelia is a very sustained heavy matchup, and the damage reduction through Maokai's ult will kind of get negated by the true damage of Aurelia's W. So I think that's kind of how the matchup works out. I wouldn't say one of them beats the other, but we like having the Aurelia in like later stages of the game.
All right, we got a little listen in at the start of the game where you were talking about scaling and Trinity Force and spikes like that. Talk to me more about the team composition and what your goals were coming in.
This game, especially when you have Kog'Maw, it's just really important that when you have Trinity Force, you have the power spike. That's usually when your mid lane hits the Fiend's Sork Boots kind of power spike too. And that's where you can start grouping up with these team fighting team comps. And that's just pretty much what we want to work out for, especially when we have the double Trinity Force. When you get those, that's really your mid-game power spike, and that's what you need, and you have to play around because the Trinity Force champions, they scale well, but other champs that maybe rush IE, 80 carries like Triss scale better into the late game. But when you hit that power spike in the mid game, it's huge, and you need to take advantage of it.
So how much of a deficit are you guys comfortable with, falling into having that late scaling team comp? Sorry, having that late scaling team comp. How much of a deficit are you willing to endure before you start to get worried?
I'd say maybe like a 5k gold lead would probably be. It really depends if you have like a really heavy scaling comp like we did against C9. We just fell too far behind. This game, I wouldn't say we had like a hardcore scaling comp because we do have that mid game power spike. That's really the big power spike that we want to play to. And I'd say a lot of teams, us too, kind of panic even when they have a late game comp. And sometimes you just need to calm down and think about where their power spikes are and where yours are and where you can take advantage of it.
So I've been keeping my eyes on your bot lane for a little bit. And you talked about a deficit. Turtle and Lustboy seem to be getting bullied around the last 2 days. Is there something that's going on there that's really apparent, or is it just synergy, communication?
I think they just need some more time to work out. They are really strong 2v2, but they have issues against like maybe getting ganked a lot, or just there are some things that they just need to work on together. And I think it's something that we can definitely figure out for playoffs because we're going to have a couple weeks where they can just duo queue all day long. And I'm not really too worried. Super Week is really where we just need to secure a place for playoffs. Maybe we can get top 2. It's very unlikely now, but we still got our spot in the playoffs, and that's what we wanted.
Yeah, there's definitely still a chance at that number 2 slot. I want to jump into the game. I want to go 42 minutes in where we see the team fight that kind of turns things back around into your guys' favor. So we're going to pull it up on your screen here. Talk to me about, falling into this kind of an opportunity for a team fight that you can capitalize.
Yeah, I think this is very late in the game where we see Maokai already using his TP and then backing because we faked the rotation onto the mid lane. So we knew it was going to be a 4v5 and we just kind of brute forced them. When you know you're 4v5 and you have a team comp where we have speed ups like Nami and Orianna, I just speed people up and they just run at them. And we just knew that the 4v5, regardless of like how much we were behind or ahead, we would just be able to win the fight.
And you guys ended up getting the Baron and the middle inhibitor turret off of that. And then when you put yourself in that situation with the late game scaling comp, does it just become don't mess up and just continue going forward when you get that lead?
It's pretty much just don't mess up. Their whole comp was built around like maybe Ezreal poking a bit, but them being able to disengage and then being able to pick. They have the RE ult, they have Ezreal's E to disengage, but they have a lot of spells like Cocoon, Hook, Charm. They have a lot of things that can catch us off guard, and they can follow up and chain those CCs very well. And we just felt like when we were sieging, as long as we don't get hit by one of those CCs, we'll be fine, and we can just slowly wind down the turrets.
Were you at all surprised by the Ezreal pick, given the fact that Tristana was the only ban for AD carries. Cog, you still had Jinx, and really anything else that would have scaled a little bit better than Ezreal.
I don't know. Cutie is just... Cutie is Cutie. He's so unexpected. I would never go into a game thinking that... None of us went into a game thinking, oh, Cutie's going to pick this champion if it's up. I think Cutie just comes in on the day and he's like, oh, this champion is great. I want to play Ezreal today. And he did very well this game. And I think you can make pretty much any AD carry work in this meta as long as you play well enough.
That being said, he is a super mobile carry, and so is Ahri, as well as Elise is pretty slippery with her repel.
Yeah.
So when you face a team that's got all kinds of mobility, how does target calling work, especially being one of the shot callers yourself?
Mainly in teamfights, Maokai is going to be going into melee range, so it's pretty much having the basis of just hitting Maokai whenever you can and just keeping an eye on all of their carries and seeing when they're going to go in. Especially with Orianna, it's really hard to land that ult when they're all so mobile. So I throw my ball down, I'm like, oh, are they going to jump? Are they going to do all these things? But we have the basis of just hitting the closest targets and then just keeping our eye out on especially the Ahri for when she goes in.
And how are you stepping up to the shot calling role? Because I know that you kind of hesitant about it before, but now you're really just coming into yourself. How was that journey for you?
It's really hard. I feel like I'm playing worse individually because there's so much more to think about when you're shot calling. You have to think about pretty much what everyone has to do. And when we're strong, how are your teammates doing? Are they ahead? Are they behind? Where can we make our next play? Where do we need to play safe? When do we need to give up objectives? It's a really hard job, and it's something I have to keep working on to. But I'm trying to watch a lot of replays and just trying to learn through other really good players, and especially Reggie, and learn how to shot call.
Awesome. All right, finally, I want to ask you about tomorrow's game, mostly because it's a possible preview of a first-round playoff match between you and Curse. Yeah, how important is that game? Less so for the win, but more so for understanding that team and developing a plan going into playoffs if you do end up playing them in the first round.
I think if we manage to get that win and we play them in the first round, we're going to go in really confident. If we win tomorrow, we're going to be 4-0ing them, and going into playoffs, we're going to feel like a lot more confident and a lot more comfortable going into that game. So I think tomorrow's game, regardless of whether we can be 2 or 3, it's just really important, and we have to give it our all.
Awesome. Well, you guys performed very fabulously in that game, coming back from a little bit of a deficit. Got your first win on Super Week. Congratulations. Thanks for joining us at the desk. Now we've got a recall to base, but we'll be right back with our next Rumble on the Rift. Team Curse versus LMQ. Don't go anywhere.